If you thought the U.S. Army was big, just wait until you hear about the U.S. Navy, which boasts the world's largest navy with 11 active aircraft carriers and 95 total ships in operation, including submarines. While the U.S. Army dominates the terrestrial aspects of modern warfare, the U.S. Navy controls the seas and the airspace directly above them. If you want to get to America, you gotta go through her Navy. Altogether, the U.S. Navy has roughly 370,000 active personnel, 190,000 of which belong to the United States Marine Corps. As the name implies, Marines are trained to perform amphibious assaults, meaning that they can operate on both sea and land. They were originally founded as a sort of middle ground between the Navy and the Army, but why have them both when you can have a 3-in-1 service? Marines are tough because they're trained to conduct reconnaissance missions, hold territory, and strike deep within enemy territory. And they're fast because, unlike the Army, Marines are trained to move quickly. The latter explains why the Marine Corps doesn't have any tanks or armored vehicles, nor does it have any Air Force bases or jets. At least that's the official reason. There's a popular rumor among U.S. soldiers that the Marine Corps is forbidden from having tanks, because they would know what to do with them. Now, we don't know how true this is, but we know that the Marine Corps did decline the new Marine Corps amphibious combat vehicle, citing concerns that it would not mesh well with Marine tactics. And the timing was impeccable. The ACV was commissioned right as the war in Ukraine broke out, to put the spotlight on the utility of tanks on the modern battlefield. The Marine Corps decided that it didn't need tanks, but it didn't decide to forgo all forms of heavy armor. In their place, the Marines have turned to heavier variants of existing infantry fighting vehicles. For example, in 2021, General Dynamics proposed a new variant of the M2 Bradley called the Mobile Protected Firepower, or MPF, which features upgraded armor, increased mobility, and a significantly stronger weapon system. Initially, the Marines ordered 580 MPF systems, though that order has since grown. The MPF weapons consist of a 105mm cannon with an added 50 caliber heavy machine gun for greater area denial and suppression firepower. On the inside, the MPF can carry 9 Marines fully equipped and with space for 2 crew members. What sets the MPF apart from traditional tanks is the absence of a turret. But that seems like a blessing in disguise. The removal of the turret allowed for more space to be used for the crew, along with more ammunition and fuel. The lack of a turret also means that the Marines will spend less time rotating between frontline positions, making them less visible to incoming enemy strikes. In addition, the Marine Corps has 250 M1 A1 Abrams tanks in reserve, which means that the Marines are technically able to mobilize tank platoons when necessary, although whether they have the training to use them properly is a moot point. But that's not the end of the story. The USMC also has some 2,800 of the newest light combat vehicles, the Mobile Protected Firepower replacing the aging fleet of ACVs. Thanks to its lightweight aluminum hull, the ACV weighs less than half of the M2 Bradley, which helps across difficult terrain, especially sand. The Marine Corps believes that the ACV is superior to the M2 Bradley because it is faster and has better off-road capability, making it ideal for amphibious assaults in coastal regions. But the trade-off for this versatility is a reduction in firepower and survivability. The ACV has a reduced amount of onboard ammunition for its 30mm cannon, and its lighter shielding means that it lacks the protection of the M2 Bradley. Nonetheless, the SAV has undergone several upgrades since 2020 that have improved its armor and attack capabilities. These improvements mean that the M2 Bradley and the ACV have copper ball damage potential when engaging enemy targets. But ultimately, the U.S. Marines seem to have found a way to get the best of both worlds. Despite being unable to mount a proper tank battalion, they have created a unique style of warfare that revolves around fast moving, Lightly armored columns of infantry fighting vehicles packing serious firepower and the ability to move quickly, much like the armored spearheads of old. But there's more to the U.S. Navy than just elite shock troops. As the naval component of the U.S. Armed Forces, it's the Navy's responsibility to protect international shipping lanes, conduct warfare on the high seas, and project American power overseas. What sets the U.S. Navy apart from every other navy in the world is its fleet of supercarriers. While many navies rely on smaller attack craft and submarines, the U.S. Navy's strength lies in its 11 active supercarriers. Imagine a city the size of Manhattan Island floating in the middle of the ocean. Add to it an airbase that can launch 75 sorties per hour, and you begin to get a glimpse into the massive power projector. Capacity of the U.S. Navy chest carriers. The Nimitz-class of supercarriers alone is a sight to behold. Measuring 1,000 feet long and 25,000 tons, these vessels are 125 meters long and 33 meters wide. Not exactly convenient for sailing through the Suez Canal, but impressive nonetheless. What truly distinguishes these floating cities from the rest of the Navy fleet is the air wing attached to each carrier. An average carrier air wing consists of 3 fighter squadrons flying the F-A-18 Super Hornet, 2 attack squadrons flying the F-A-18 Growler, and 1 squadron of helicopters equipped with either the MH-60 Seahawk or the MH-60 Roe. These fighters have the capability to travel over 1,000 kilometers away from the carrier and return before sunset, giving the carrier a significant reach beyond its line of sight. During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy maintained a fleet of 15 carriers, a measure that was deemed necessary to maintain a carrier presence in every part of the world. Nowadays, it's unlikely that the U.S. would find itself locked in a battle on multiple fronts, which is why the Navy has shrunk to 11 carriers. Still, that's more than enough to project American power anywhere in the world within a matter of days. And no other country even comes close to competing with the American supercarriers. However, having most of its forces afloat has its drawbacks. Unlike the U.S. Army, which is usually stationed in fortified bases, the U.S. Navy is always on the move, which requires frequent resupplies and rotations of personnel. This has led to a significant portion of the U.S. Navy's budget going towards transportation costs, which brings us back to the U.S. Navy's absolute elephant in the room. The U.S. spends approximately 65% of its Navy budget on maintaining its fleet of 11 supercarriers. That's more than the rest of the Navy's operational costs combined. It's no wonder people say that aircraft carriers are money pits. All the factors we've covered thus far make it abundantly clear why the U.S. spends so much on its military. If anything, it might seem a little less than it should, and perhaps that is one of the reasons why the U.S. prefers to resolve diplomatic disputes peacefully. After all, there's no reason for peace talks when you can just send in the Marines. And that's why